next? Well, let's talk to Iain Duncan Smith, the Work and Pensions Secretary. Iain, very good afternoon to you.
Thank you.
Now, you've made your speech today. There was a lot of mentions of the word fairness, and a lot of your critics will think, well, that's a bit ironic that Iain Duncan Smith should be talking about fairness, because they think a lot of your reforms are intrinsically unfair.
Well, we'll have a debate and disagree about that. All the reforms that I brought through have been about trying to get people back into work, into full-time work, into decent level of work, and to get the level of pay up. For example, I've been a great supporter of the living wage. In London, I ensured that my own department and the people that provided the services for cleaners, etc., they paid the London living wage, and we did it. I'm not sure we were unique in that regard as the department, but we were, and I've been keen on doing that. So
that was your fist-pumping moment in the budget.
Well, when he announced out going to a national living wage, it's hugely what I have subscribed to, and that helps enormously. So all my changes, are about trying to improve the nature of the system. Where changes to disability benefit through PIP, making sure that we get more people to those in greater need, to ensure that those who actually apply for it get a proper check, so we understand what's right and wrong, and then that they get on the level that's necessary. And we inherited the employment support allowance from Labour. I've for 4 years believed that we needed to make some major overhauls in that. We did a few, but the Liberals weren't in agreement with me over that, and now I announced out today that we are going to be looking at that and asking the single question: why do you have to face a binary choice that you're too sick to work, and if, as we discover, 60% want to do some work, we should actually arrange the benefits so that we can support people who want to go back to work, because being in touch with work is important. All those kind of changes are ones that we want to make or have made, and then universal credit's arrival hugely helps people both go into work quicker, stay in work longer, and earn more money. And those we're now proving by the rollout that we're going around the country. So big changes.
You've done this job now for more than 5 years. You faced a huge amount of criticism for a lot of the reforms. I think a lot of people understand that there does need to be reform, but is there any aspect of the reforms that you've brought in so far, or any aspect of the sort of operation of the system where you think, yeah, we could have done that differently? I understand why people are so angry.
Well, generally, I think what we've done in reforming the system, and the reform has been dramatic. I mean, this welfare system had become pretty chaotic, and nobody understood how it worked. Very few people understood what benefit they should be on. It parked people for years and years, in some cases a decade, on sickness benefit with nobody seeing them. So these changes that I've brought in are necessary, and the results, I speak for themselves. Not only do we have more people in work, more women in work, more people with disabilities, but the figure that I keep saying, which is really, really important, 1 in 5 households had nobody in work when I walked through the door. Now we have record low levels of people out of work in households, and more importantly, it's on social housing. In social housing, we now have the lowest number of social housing households out of work since records began. So for those who say why, I say because we're getting to people who had been parked beyond the labour market for so long that their families suffered and they did, and that's changing their lives. So, you can't do this without changing a system. Your question, do I regret anything? Of course, there are times when you make changes and they don't work exactly as you want. You have to make modifications. Of course, we'd like to do more of that.
When you hear some of the personal stories that people tell, where there have undoubtedly been individuals who have taken their own lives because of the aftermath of the ATOS test, for example. Now, disabled campaigners tell us that 100,000 people have. I'm never quite sure where that figure comes from.
I'm sorry, this is where I do not agree with this. I'm sorry. Look, people who are in that situation, they are in a very delicate condition. We are trying to make sure that we support people who have difficulty like that. But honestly, when we published the mortality stats the other day, people made false claims about them. The Mirror and the Guardian had to retract and apologise, because what they actually showed was that mortality rates in benefit, even after these checks, are falling. And my simple point is, this is not an easy area, but everybody agrees that we need to make the changes and reform. I didn't create the employment support allowance. I wanted to change it. Now I announced today, and I announced out in the summer, we're going to change it. We're going to make it, I think, a better, more flexible benefit that allows people to work and allows us to support them and understand their condition.
You would have to accept, though, that the ATOS system has not worked as you wanted it to work fully, and that there have been very sad cases of individuals who, they have been recorded, of people who have taken their own lives as a result of going through that process?
Every person that takes their life is a tragedy. And of course, my heart goes out to them and their families. But, there are terrible cases of people taking their lives who had nothing to do with the health checks. So I simply say you need to get it a little bit in perspective. What the left tends to do is immediately point the finger and say it's all because of this. We thought that Atos weren't doing their job. We inherited their contract from the last Labour government. I get Labour politicians attacking me now, and I keep saying to them, you designed this system and you set the contract up. What we've done is we've got them out, we've got new people in, much better system, much more amenable. We've had 4 reviews of the process, which have accepted all the recommendations, and my point is now there's a fundamental problem in the system which says you have to be too sick to work, and I want to be able to say, look, let's keep you in touch with the world of work and work out some kind of benefit system that allows you to be supported in your need.
Last week at the Labour Party conference, there's one of the delegates, a disabled lady called Sue. She made a speech in which she likened what you're doing to what happened in Germany in the 1930s. And I took her to task on this on air, and I said that was a disgraceful thing to say because it trivialises the Holocaust. Whatever your views are of the reform process, it trivialises the Holocaust. She got to hear about this, and she came to the stand when we weren't on air, and we had a 20-minute conversation, and she genuinely believes this. This is and nothing I could say about sort of, well, look, I know Iain Duncan Smith, I think I know what his motives are. Believe me, he doesn't think what you think he believes. Is that a frustration for you that there are people who have been involved in this process, or they've got friends or relatives involved in this process, they actually think that you have evil intent in this process?
Well, there are some people, I'm sure, that will arrive at a conclusion. I'm not surprised, by the way, because the left and their supporters, even the Labour Party, seem to have departed any memory that they set the system up in the first place, now say, oh well, it's all somebody else's fault. My argument is we have set out to try and improve it. We have improved the quality of these checks dramatically. I am in the business solely of trying to improve the quality of people's lives. Personally, I never get caught up with individual commentary. I'm sure there'll be people out there. What I find is that the left, as we've seen outside here today, they want to believe the worst in everything. That's the nature of what they do, and there are people in the Labour Party who deliberately twist the facts and make sure that somehow this looks like it's the Conservatives trying to do this. I keep reminding them it was Labour that brought this health check into being. I have modified it dramatically, and now I've announced out, which I wanted to do 3 years ago, to actually reform and change it because I believe it doesn't work as it should do, and I believe that for some time. I want to make it better. That is the right way to deal with it. And I have to tell you, I wouldn't be doing this job if I didn't care about every single life that is in Britain that I want to help improve. And that is a reality for me. And if people want to believe what they want to believe, I'm not in the business of trying to argue with them about it. I've got a job to do to try and make sure that a government delivers more to the people that need it. And it's worth reminding everybody, for all the nonsense talked, this country spends more on sickness and disability benefit than almost any other single Western country, and in some cases more than 2 or 3 of those countries put together. I'm proud of that. I want it to go to the right people. This is not about cutting the disability benefit. This is about supporting people who have the need to be supported, and I believe we do a good job. So I wish some of the politicians out there that want to use this invective to whip up this kind of concern and anger, they need to think carefully about what they say.
Just a very quick final question. And the fact that Jeremy Corbyn came up to address, I think, 8,000 of the protesters who've been out there throughout most of this conference, or at least in the afternoon, so they don't seem to appear in the mornings. I don't know why that would be. Has he not legitimised that all of the actions that they've... I mean, I'm not saying that every single person has been sort of spitting at people or sort of doing other things, but, I mean, it's been pretty nasty out there, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's like a throwback to the 1980s. I'm old enough to remember that this kind of stuff went on at conferences the whole time. I have to tell you, for me, it's a problem for the hard left, for the left. The left is rapidly putting themselves in the position of being a violent and nasty protest party.
Have you ever felt personally scared or threatened going through any of these protests? I mean, I don't just mean here, I mean generally, because you've encountered a few of them in your time.
Yeah, and they target those who are recognisable, and I'm one of them. The answer to that is no. Absolutely
nice
not.
Blonde wig. That's what you need.
No, I'm not. I'm I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of what I do. I do a job for a reason. I'm in politics for one reason only, to improve the quality of life. If people want to stand and hurl abuse and create in their own minds a world in which there is nothing but conspiracy against them, then I say, okay, let them get on with it. But the vast majority of the public, know that doing what I'm trying to do at the moment is vitally necessary to make sure that those who need the support get it, and those who can do work and to get on with their lives, we need to help and support them in that process. That's
Iain Duncan Smith, thank you very much indeed.
I decided to do it because it is an important subject in relation to members of the public. But obviously, of course, a lot of attention has been focused this summer on the migration crisis in Europe, on the issue of Syrian refugees. And that's why I devoted quite a portion of my speech